Hi everyone, my name is Heather and I'm the person behind Happy Puppy Truffles. Today I wanted to share with you guys another idea for a pop-up card. We made one yesterday and I wanted to show you guys one more as we kind of wind down with all of our holiday themed sort of origami projects in origami here this past few weeks. And yesterday we did something with Christmas trees, and I wanted to do something that had like a gift in it. And a huge part of where I got my ideas from usually is from a paper that I want to use. And I love this paper from Grim Hobby, and I did a review of this before. And it's just almost so beautiful you don't even want to fold it. And that's kind of what I've done. I've just cut it into a square to make a gift, and then put this giant bow on top because I thought that looked cute. And there was a really pretty red that I've used here, and then there's also this really pretty gold color. And so I've got both of those here. Where's my other gold piece? It's hiding over here, sorry. And what I've done for the gold is, well, first of all, I've used the silver, of course, for the ribbon. And then I wanted to make a little bit here for the wrapping paper, too. So I can tell you guys all that here as we get some of the dimensions down. But those are some of the pieces of what we're using. And then I've got some paper here. I've got some basil craft paper for my card itself, and I picked kind of this lighter kind of dark celery greenish color, sort of. Yeah, it's a pretty color. And then on the outer side of the card, I thought, you know, doubling up with this is too thick, and I just wanted something to sort of hide away the mechanism of the pop-up. So I used this handmade paper that's in this really pretty blue color, and I like just the way all these colors look together. So this is the same size as the card, and so it'll be covering everything completely so that you get a completely different image of the color inside and out. So this particular card is meant to be a good greeting card size for putting in like an A6 envelope. This is the dimension of the card, so that's what size I cut these pieces of paper for both of those. So in this case I needed two of these. Oh yeah, I forgot this pen doesn't work, sorry. I need two of those because one's for the outside and one's for the inside. And then for the box of gifts, what I've done is, like I said, I've got just three of them here. It's going to have this one in the middle, and then just kind of have these two behind on either side. And this big one here is 7.5 by 7.5. And that's for the gift. And then you could kind of play with what you want for the other two. This one is 3.75 by 3.75. And then this one, I think, is a little random. It's about 3 by 3. I just wanted it to be just a little bit less. So you can kind of play around with things and see what size you want to use for everything. That's kind of up to you guys. For the ribbon, at the top of this particular one here that was 7.5, the ribbon for that was 7.5 by 15. And I know I'm writing this right in the middle there, but that was the size for the ribbon. So just to kind of give you guys an idea. Now, you don't need to make this exactly the way I did, of course. I hope it'll maybe just give you guys some ideas of some things you can do too, or you can copy it, either way. But, so I've got these pieces, and it always helps to test out your pop-up first before you do everything in final form. You want to make sure nothing sticks out weird when you're done, those kinds of things. But I've got the basics down here, and I already made the ribbon and glued that on, so that part is finished. And what I did for these little squares is I wanted it to look like it had ribbon wrapped around it too. So I just took a little bit of paper, a strip of the silver, and glued it down. And I was just going to show you guys, I do this side too. It helps because, you know, this is just something that people won't see so much. It's good to kind of snack it on either side, and it'll make a nice clean edge, and it looks like actually that it's been wrapped even though it hasn't been. So I'll just put a little bit of glue here to get this last bit on for this one. And because of the texture of the paper, you can see the texture underneath. It looks kind of cool. the way it does that. You want to try to keep things as centered, of course, as you can. But that kind of gives me one of my little finished little presents to put. And then this one here, what I've done is, rather than have like really super thin papers lined up to make a double ribbon, what I've done here is I just cut out the middle part. And I'll show you guys how you can do that with this big piece. What you can do, just so that you don't have to run the risk of cutting lots of thin paper, is just kind of fold your paper in half and then cut up to a point and try to keep the other side about the same too. And with the bigger way, it may not even turn out that good. But you get both of those cut out, and then you just cut up across the top. And it gives you then the illusion of having two strips of paper here. And these parts get folded back so that you don't see the edges. So that's kind of what I've done for this technique, to give it the appearance of having two, even though there's only one base area here where things will be connected. So I can glue that on too. And you could certainly decorate your presents any way you want to. You could use lots of different techniques, ribbons, jewels, all sorts of things if you guys wanted to. This is just one way I decided to do mine, because I had this silver paper that's so pretty. It's not really metallic, it's this really pretty kind of color, and I wanted to use that for the ribbons. So kind of gives you an idea there for a couple different variations of presents there for the design. And then the card itself here, I've decided to just have, like I said, having this like middle part here and then having a smaller one on either side. And because this is so big, I wanted to give it a little bit wider base just to keep hold of the part a little better. This isn't, because this paper is really thick, it holds the weight of the ribbon really well. But if you'd used some paper that was thinner, it wouldn't, and it wind up being just this weird droopy kind of strange looking thing. So test things out, make sure your paper's strong so that you're not having things droop and sag, because that's kind of sad looking. So I've just gone ahead and kind of centered and drawn these in here to give me an idea of where things should be. And I'll go ahead and cut these guys out here. You can use an X-Acto knife and cut this area out, or you can use scissors, depending on, of course, on how thick your paper is and which you prefer. I like using scissors better, it's just easier to hold. But that also depends on if you've got good scissors. I've got really nice scissors here that I love, so we'll get this part cut out. Once you've gotten those areas cut out, then you can take this bottom part here, pull this tab up and fold it over, creating a crease, and do that for each of these little guys, and try to keep everything as parallel and straight and perpendicular and all that as you can. Just makes everything look better when you're done. Then go ahead and let them rest down and open up your card, and then just pop those areas through and then close the card again, and that'll give it a chance to lay flat. The Brazil paper doesn't really create really great creases. It has a tendency to be kind of funky looking, so you want to bend it a few times and really get a good feel for stuff so that it looks nice there on the inside. So I've got all of that kind of completed here, and like I said, I'm going to just be putting this guy right here, and you can kind of test to make sure, of course, that he's not coming out of the top. It's a close fit, but just barely there good. And then I'm going to also be placing my little gift here, and then this smaller one a little bit more up front. So I'm just going to start off by doing this one back here in the back. It always works good to do the ones that have a shorter stand, because that means they're farther back in the card, and that way you layer everything the way you want to. And in this case, it always helps to put glue on this part of the pop-up so that when you put it on here, you're not putting too much glue back on the back and having it stick to the back of your card. So I'm just going to kind of line this up first. And then you could close it for a second and give it a good pinch. And then just make sure everything's straight. We don't want to have crooked presents. That would look sad. And then in this case, actually, I'm going to go ahead and put this little guy here next. And I suppose I could have done the middle part too. It doesn't really matter. These are almost the same. This one's 1.5 centimeters. This is 1.1, and this one was 1. So just the slightest variation between these. But I get that cut on there, and then I can push down. Just make sure things look okay and you don't have glue sticking out weird anywhere. And then I'll put the big one right on top. And in this case, you know, I had the ribbons there to make sure I was centered. This time I need to kind of just visualize it myself as I do this. And kind of keep in mind where my center is, if being centered is important to you for this. And that should give you a finished little part there for the presents. And they all close up nice. And then, once we've got the parts inside the card, then we can put this extra paper on the outside. And in this case, because my paper and the outer part and the in part are the same size, I can put glue directly on the part that has the pop-up. That's usually the best way to go, because then you can get all these nice edges, and then just make sure you don't put glue on the pop-up part. Those are the 3 areas you don't want to have glue. And if you were to use and just put glue on the outer blue area, it's pretty easy to accidentally, you know, put glue right in the middle here, and then that winds up sticking to this part and messes up your whole card. So this is where I want to just make sure. And it's really up to you guys of how much glue you use. You know, if you like having just every little tiny centimeter of the card covered with glue, then that's fine. Or you can kind of play it by ear of what kind of technique you want to use for this. But I think, you know, it could be good to give it a little bit of place to hold by putting a lot on here. And it also depends a little on the kind of glue you're working with, if you can trust it to be strong. And I'll just lay this on top. And you should have a little bit of time to shift to make sure everything lines up the way you want to. And you might need to do some trimming later too. My dog's barking, excuse me. Get one side kind of right there and get this part folded over too. So that's sort of my finished little card there with the pop-up presents inside. And then if you wanted to, you could put some accent to it, or if the little bit of paper bothers you, you can trim that up too. So this is some just simple little lace that has double-sided tape on it that I got at the 100-yen store. And I just thought it would look kind of pretty to have a little bit of it right along the bottom of the card here. And you know, you could choose if you want to have it on the back too. I'm just going to have it on the front here so that it's easy for people to know where the front and the back of the card is that way. And, you know, that's just a point of preference to everybody if you guys want to use that or not. Just peel this little part off here. trim it up once I'm done here. But when you're finished, this might be something you might have. And like I said before, I think, if you prefer to leave things blank, you can, or you can write Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays or something like that. I always like kind of having it blank. And I mentioned yesterday too that this particular card does fit into the A6 envelope tutorial I showed you guys before. So if you wanted to use this particular envelope, you could slide your card in here pretty easily and be good to go. It depends on what you want it to use it for. I know this particular origami does require a super-sized piece of paper, so but that's kind of just the finished results here for this particular card. I'll have one more little kind of Christmas-oriented thing tomorrow before we dive into New Year's stuff. I hope you guys all have a wonderful, happy holiday season here, and thank you again always so much for watching.